Picture this for a second. You're trying to fall asleep, but your bedroom is an uninsulated metal box.
Right.
And it's the middle of an Idaho winter, which means, it's 20 degrees outside.
And the wind is just howling across the plains.
Exactly. Every single gust strips away whatever residual heat is left in that thin metal frame. You pull a sub-zero sleeping bag up to your chin, but you are trapped in this brutal physics problem.
Because if you crack the window, you invite in a cross breeze that puts you at immediate risk for hypothermia.
Yeah, but if you seal the window completely to trap your body heat, the moisture from your own breath has nowhere to go.
Right.
So that condensation is going to beat up on the cold glass, freeze into ice on the inside of your windshield, and slowly soak into the upholstery. It essentially turns your shelter into a petri dish for toxic mold.
It's an agonizing multiple choice test, really. One where every single answer carries a heavy physical toll.
Yeah.
And for hundreds of families, navigating that thermal tightrope isn't some hypothetical survival scenario. I mean, it's just a Tuesday night.
And bringing those daily, on-the-ground survival tactics to light is exactly what we are focusing on today. This is an installment of the Perfectly Homeless Project, a 50-state field notebook on vehicle dwelling in America. This is Idaho.
We are drawing on a really complex stack of sources today to map out this reality for you.
Yeah, we have the 2025 point-in-time homelessness count from the Idaho Housing and Finance Association, alongside McKinney-Vento student enrollment data.
Right, and we're also breaking down specific municipal codes, first-hand accounts from vehicle dwellers, and a comprehensive policy analysis that examines the laws surrounding public sleeping.
Our goal here is to bypass the rhetoric. We want you to understand the on-the-ground reality of vehicle residency in Idaho. The data, the laws, and the actual physical survival tactics.
And as always, we are looking at this impartially. We're just reporting on the policies and the source material without taking any political sides.
Exactly. Because before you can even begin to understand the laws governing vehicle dwelling, you first have to understand who is actually living in their cars in Idaho.
Yeah, and the official snapshot that most policymakers rely on. It's critical, but it really only captures half the frame.
Let's start with that, actually. The official 2025 point-in-time, or PIT, count.
Right.
Okay, let's unpack this. How exactly does a point-in-time count even work? Because the numbers are heavily cited, but I think most people don't understand the physical mechanics of gathering them.
Well, it's a federally mandated snapshot. It's literally a physical head count taken on a single night in January.
One single night in January. Wow.
Yeah, communities send out volunteers with clipboards to count people in emergency shelters, transitional housing, and those visibly sleeping on the streets or encampments. So the 2025 data shows 2,697 total individuals experiencing homelessness across Idaho.
And how does that break down?
It's split almost perfectly down the middle. So 1,349 people are sheltered and 1,348 are unsheltered.
But, sending volunteers out on one freezing night in January is going to heavily skew what you actually see, right? Think about it like taking a flash photograph in a pitch-black room.
Oh, that is a perfect way to visualize it.
The flash goes off for one fraction of a second, and it perfectly illuminates whatever happens to be moving right in front of the lens, like the highly visible street encampments or the adults utilizing formal shelters. But that brief flash completely misses everything hiding in the shadows.
Exactly. The PIT count is a vital metric, but it is heavily adult-centric and visibility-centric. It also reveals these massive regional disparities. Like if you look at Region 7, which is Ada County encompassing Boise, the vast majority of the unhoused population there is sheltered.
But then you cross over into Region 3.
Right. You look right next door at Region 3, the Canyon County corridor. That single region accounts for over 57% of the entire state's unsheltered population. That is 773 people sleeping outside or in vehicles in just that one corridor.
Wow. And here's where the shadows in that flash photograph really start to emerge. If you want to find the invisible population, the families, you have to look away from the street counts and look at the schools.
Yeah, when we pull in the McKinney-Vento student data from the Idaho State Department of Education, the scale shifts dramatically.
Could you explain McKinney-Vento for folks who might not know?
Sure. It's a federal mandate designed to protect the educational rights of unhoused children. It ensures that kids can stay enrolled in their original school and receive transportation even if they lose their permanent address.
Right.
Because schools are actively tracking this to provide services, their data captures the families that the January street counts completely miss.
So what did the school data find for the 2024-2025 school year?
They identified 8,180 students experiencing homelessness statewide.
Over 8,000 kids. That is staggering.
It is. And of that group, the data specifically identifies 664 students who are completely unsheltered or actively living in vehicles.
So what does this all mean? It means we have hundreds of families using passenger cars, minivans, and RVs as mobile classrooms, as dining rooms, and as their absolute final defense against the elements.
Yeah.
Which brings up a massive logistical puzzle. If you have a family of 4 living in a minivan, how do you hide a vehicle like that from the authorities every single night?
You don't hide it easily. And, the reason you have to hide it at all brings us to the shifting legal framework in Idaho.
Right.
During the 2025 legislative session, the state passed Senate Bill 1141, creating Idaho Code Section 67-2341, which takes effect in July 2025.
And impartially speaking, the stated legislative intent behind this bill is to standardize enforcement across the state, clear public property of encampments, and maintain public order.
But the actual mechanics of how it does that are really sweeping.
How so?
What's fascinating here is how the law defines the infraction. It effectively bans public camping and sleeping on public property, roads, or rights-of-way in any city with a population over 100,000.
And that doesn't just mean pitching a tent, right?
No. The law explicitly targets vehicles by defining indicia of camping. Under this statute, the indicia of camping in a motor vehicle includes the presence of bedding, sleeping bags, pillows, or cooking appliances.
Which are literally just the baseline items any human being needs to survive the night in a car. But wait, the law specifically targets cities with a population over 100,000. In Idaho, that means Boise, Meridian, Nampa. Why is the state specifically targeting those local municipalities?
It's a mechanism called state preemption.
Okay.
State preemption is when a higher level of government, the state, passes a law that explicitly overrides or limits the authority of a lower level of government, like a city council.
So the state is essentially wielding a massive legal stick to force local cities to comply with this specific approach to public sleeping.
And this stick is incredibly heavy. If those large cities fail to strictly enforce this ban, the state attorney general is empowered to step in, sue the municipality, and levy civil fines of up to $10,000 per individual violation.
Wait, the state is fining its own cities up to $10,000 per violation?
Yes.
How does a local mayor even budget for a creative solution, like a safe parking lot, if the attorney general is holding a $10,000 hammer over their head?
They largely can't, which is kind of the point of the preemption to force uniformity, though there is a very notable exemption in the statute.
Oh.
Commercial drivers operating commercial motor vehicles are legally permitted to sleep in their cabs at rest stops or designated areas.
So a long-haul trucker can legally sleep in their cab, but a mother in a passenger van with 2 kids parked in the exact same area is committing a punishable offense.
Under the statute, yes. But the state law is really only the top layer.
Right.
As a vehicle dweller, you are also constantly navigating a labyrinth of local municipal codes underneath that state preemption.
Let's look at Boise's municipal code, for example. You cannot park continuously on a street for more than 72 hours.
Yeah.
And if you think you can just turn the key and roll the car forward a few spots to reset the clock, the code explicitly blocks that. You are legally required to move the vehicle more than 600 feet, or it's still considered continuous parking.
It's a fascinating example of geometric policing.
Geometric policing. I haven't heard that term.
Yeah, instead of writing a law that explicitly says you cannot be unhoused here, cities use geometry and time like 600 feet, 72 hours, to invisibly police unhoused individuals. It creates a state of perpetual motion, ensuring that vehicle dwellers are constantly moving, effectively remaining invisible and disjointed from any neighborhood.
And if you leave the public streets of Boise and head to a place like Idaho Falls, the zoning ordinances prohibit RV living entirely outside of designated permitted RV parks.
Right.
You could literally own a piece of private residential property within city limits, and you still cannot legally live in an RV on your own land. We also saw this logic applied to state property with House Bill 603 in 2026.
The protest ban.
Exactly. It banned overnight protest encampments on places like the Capitol Mall from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. using the same broad definitions of camping.
Which brings us to the inevitable pressure point.
Yeah, if you can't legally sleep in a vehicle on public land in major cities because of the state ban, and you can't sleep in an RV on your own private land because of local zoning, Where does a family actually go?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the answer is displacement. It triggers a really dangerous cycle of geographic and financial displacement. The policy analysis we reviewed refers to this as the asset depletion cycle.
Break down the mechanics of that cycle for us. How does a family actually lose their asset?
It starts quietly with a simple parking ticket for violating one of those geometric ordinances, like the 72-hour rule we just talked about.
Right.
Vehicle residents, by definition, usually have incredibly limited fixed incomes. They simply cannot afford a $50 or $100 parking ticket.
So they ignore it because they have to.
Right, the ticket goes unpaid, the vehicle gets a tow warning, and then a few days later, the tow truck arrives and the vehicle is impounded.
And getting a car out of impound isn't just paying the initial ticket.
Not at all. To release that vehicle, you have to pay the initial citation, the towing company's base fee, and then compounding daily storage fees.
Ouch.
Every 24 hours that car sits behind the chain link fence, the price goes up. On top of that, impound lots often require you to show current registration and insurance before releasing the car, which, many unhoused individuals have let lapse due to cost.
So within a matter of days, you were looking at a bill of $800.
Easily.
For someone living in their car, that isn't just a hurdle, that is an insurmountable financial wall.
Precisely. So the vehicle just sits in the lot until it is eventually auctioned off by the towing company to recoup the costs. And at that exact moment, the municipal enforcement system has inadvertently transformed temporary vehicular homelessness into chronic, unsheltered, street-level homelessness.
That is brutal. The individual has just lost their shelter, their primary physical asset, and usually their transportation to work.
Yeah.
And there is a geographical side to this displacement, too. Let's go back to that 100,000 population threshold in Senate Bill 1141. Because those massive $10,000 fines only apply to the biggest urban centers, vehicle dwellers are systematically pushed out.
Right.
They flee the strict enforcement of places like Boise and retreat into the peripheral rural areas or smaller neighboring towns where the state mandate doesn't apply.
Which creates a devastating logistical paradox.
Because it forces them miles and miles away from the urban centers where all the essential survival resources are heavily concentrated.
Exactly. The daytime drop-in centers, the food pantries, the medical clinics, the actual jobs, those are all downtown.
So now you have families with zero discretionary income being forced to burn through precious gas, just commuting back and forth from the rural fringes every single day.
And when you are pushed to those rural fringes, you are fully exposed to the elements. The daily physical reality of living in a vehicle in Idaho's extreme climate becomes a brutal test of endurance.
Here's where it gets really interesting. And by interesting, I mean terrifying. Let's go back to that uninsulated metal box from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Vehicles are essentially giant heat sinks. In an Idaho winter where temperatures in the panhandle or the east can routinely plunge well below zero, you face that multiple choice test every night.
Option A is running the engine to use the heater. But if it is actively snowing and your tailpipe gets blocked by a snowdrift, or if your older vehicle has an exhaust leak, you are pumping carbon monoxide directly into the cabin. It is a silent, lethal risk.
Option B is turning the engine off and sealing the windows tight to trap your body heat. But as we mentioned, human breath is incredibly damp. You exhale a massive amount of water vapor overnight.
Yeah, that condensation builds up, freezes solid to the interior glass, and melts into the seats, creating toxic mold right next to where you're breathing.
Which leaves option C, cracking a window to let the moisture escape. But doing so introduces sub-freezing ambient air into the cabin. It strips away any ambient warmth and puts you at immediate risk for hypothermia unless you have high-grade, sub-zero thermal gear.
But counterintuitively, winter might not even be the most dangerous season.
Wait, really?
Yeah, when you read the testimonies from our sources, summer presents an entirely different and arguably more grueling threat.
I would assume winter is the absolute crisis point.
You'd think so. But the sources highlight a detailed first-hand account from Cassidy Landry, who lived in her car for 9 months in the Boise area. She explains that the summer months are actually the busiest and most exhausting time for outreach teams.
Why is that?
It has to do with the limits of human charity.
Oh.
During the winter, society, extended family members, and friends are much more forgiving. When there is a blizzard outside, the survival stakes are obvious. Relatives will let an unhoused family member double up sleep on their couch or camp out on the living room floor.
But as soon as the weather warms up in May or June, the visual crisis disappears and the charity evaporates.
Exactly. The patience runs out.
Yeah.
Families are asked to leave, pushing them back into their vehicles right as the Idaho sun turns those cars into unventilated ovens.
Wow.
Cassidy described the physical toll, waking up every single morning utterly exhausted, completely drenched in sweat, and severely dehydrated. A car parked in the summer sun operates on the exact same principles as a greenhouse, trapping solar radiation. It is a grueling, relentless way to simply exist.
So if you are a listener visualizing this, faced with the geometric policing ordinances, the constant threat of the impound cycle, and an absolutely unforgiving climate, how are people actually surviving this?
The survival mechanisms rely almost entirely on community lifelines. These are small, nonprofit initiatives attempting to build a safety net within this very rigid, punitive legal framework.
A prime example in our sources is a program called Safe Nights Idaho.
Yes.
It's a safe parking program operated by ResourceLink Idaho. And the most compelling part, ResourceLink was founded by Cassidy Landry, the same woman who survived those 9 months in her car. She essentially built the exact system she desperately needed when she was unhoused.
That's amazing. And the mechanics of the program are highly structured. They partner with local churches and private businesses to use their parking lots overnight.
Right.
It is a permit-based system, meaning there's an intake and screening process. This is crucial because it helps address the security concerns of the surrounding neighborhoods. But more importantly, it provides vehicle residents with a legal, static place to park overnight.
They don't have to worry about the 600-foot rule. They don't have to fear that terrifying 3 a.m. flashlight knocking on their window from law enforcement.
Exactly. They provide portable sanitation, and they use the stability of that parking spot to connect people with consistent housing case management.
But a safe parking lot usually only solves the nighttime equation.
True.
Because of strict local zoning and the operational hours of the host businesses, vehicles usually have to vacate those lots by 7 or 8 a.m. That is where daytime survival hubs become critical to the ecosystem.
Places like Corpus Commons in Boise.
Yeah, where people can get a hot shower, do their laundry, and crucially, receive mail. Or Father Bill's Kitchen up in Coeur d'Alene, or the City of Refuge in Idaho Falls.
This raises an important question. How sustainable is this patchwork safety net when you look at the raw math?
What do you mean?
Well, in Ada County alone, there are over 2,600 individuals experiencing homelessness. But there are only 568 official emergency shelter beds.
Wait, over 2,000 people without a designated bed in just one county.
Yeah. That means the vast majority are relying on their vehicles, couch surfing, or street camping.
So these safe parking zones and daytime centers are not just helpful, they are absolutely vital infrastructure.
Yet, they constantly operate under a state of extreme vulnerability.
How so?
They face pushback from local zoning restrictions, neighborhood complaints, and now the looming threat of the state-level preemption fines built into Senate Bill 1141.
Oh, right.
If a city officially permits a safe parking program on municipal land, do they risk triggering a $10,000 lawsuit from the Attorney General? It creates a massive chilling effect on local municipalities trying to engineer creative, compassionate solutions.
It is a profound standoff. You
Yeah.
have state mandates focused on public order colliding with municipal survival budgets and sheer human endurance.
Yeah.
We have unpacked the hidden student data, the mechanics of state preemption, the brutal math of the impound lot, and the stark physical realities of surviving the elements in a metal box.
As we wrap up this exploration, there is one lingering adjacent thought I want to leave you with.
Yep.
We have spent a lot of time talking about the adults navigating these laws. But think back to those 664 unhoused students.
Right. The kids.
When a child spends their formative years doing their math homework by the dome light of a minivan in a big box store parking lot, how does that fundamentally rewrite their psychological definition of home?
Wow.
What happens to the next generation's perception of security, trust, and community when their earliest memories are of their family constantly moving just to sleep? And as municipalities design policies to manage the aesthetics of public spaces, what happens when those very laws inadvertently dismantle the final metal safety net, keeping a precarious family off the concrete?
Man, that is a staggering, heavy question to mull over. The invisible psychological toll might outlast the physical one.
It really might.
We want to thank you so much for joining us for this analysis of the Field Notebook. Before we go, as a reminder, you can check out the Etsy store to grab some of the apparel associated with this project.
Yeah, and we have also set up a Buy Me a Coffee link at buymeacoffee.com for Perfectly Homeless.
Exactly. You can help support the project this way. If you found this valuable, we really appreciate it.
Thank you for taking the time to understand the complex mechanics of this issue with us.
Until next time, remember that uninsulated metal box in the winter wind. Sometimes, the only line between sheltered and unsheltered is just a freezing pane of glass. Stay curious, everyone.
Perfectly homeless is more than a phrase. It's a perspective. If you'd like to support our channel and help us keep exploring these vital topics, click on over to the Perfectly Homeless Etsy store. Pick up a warm hoodie with our logo and support the channel. Perfectly Homeless is a brand built from real life and real lessons. Wear the message of freedom and support the Perfectly Homeless mission.